This episode is made possible by U.S. Bank and Brex, the AI-powered spend platform.
Hi, this is Moran Shemesh, the CFO of Mobileye, and you're listening to CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 1060.
I was always in a seat where I was working across different industries, company sizes, and with that, all the challenges that came, that were relevant to those specific businesses. And it provided me with such a concentrated view of how leadership in finance can drive growth across such diversity and how to scale businesses. And that's, I guess, where I really found my passion for this kind of role without really yet knowing where it was going to take me. But when I look back, that experience was absolutely invaluable because it just meant by the time that I stepped into the seat, I had, this wealth of knowledge and this very broad level of experience that I could tap into quite easily.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we speak with Emma Seymour, CFO of Deputy. Back in her accounting days, Emma Seymour frequently took on added responsibilities to achieve more innovative outcomes for her clients. Sometimes those outcomes raised eyebrows in the boardroom, where Seymour's storytelling abilities were put to the test. That familiar sequence of events likely unfolded at Deputy over the last few years, where CFO Seymour led the company to pivot away from traditional VC funding towards strategic customer investments. You'll hear that story and more on today's episode. We'll begin after this. Have you heard about Brex? It's the world's smartest corporate card. Finance leaders love it because it's got powerful controls and rewards that help them make every dollar count. Here's why Brex cards are so smart. You can embed your expense policy inside the card. This lets you control employee spending before it even happens. Brex cards also automate manual expense, tasks like receipts, memos, and reviews. So you're free to focus on optimizing your company finances. Over 25,000 companies take every dollar further with Brex. Join them at brex.com/grow. Hello, we're speaking to Emma Seymour, CFO of Deputy. Emma, welcome.
Hello, Jack. Thanks for having me.
So, Emma, as always, we like to have our guests look back for us and identify what they believe were the experiences that prepared them for the CFO role. What would come to mind for you?
Well, I actually started my career in public practice prior to getting into the tech space. I was in advisory, and I spent about 13 years advising a very broad range of different businesses. And that's probably where the experience started for me that was going to serve me longer term. Without knowing that's where my path was going, it really was a wonderful training ground. So where I found myself was in becoming a trusted advisor, if you like, to such a diverse range of scaling businesses. I was always in a seat where I was working across different industries, company sizes, and with that, all the challenges that came, that were relevant to those specific businesses. And it provided me with such a concentrated view of how leadership in finance can drive growth across such diversity and how to scale businesses. And that's, I guess, where I really found my passion for this kind of role without really yet knowing where it was going to take me. But when I look back, that experience was absolutely invaluable because it just meant by the time that I stepped into the seat, I had, this wealth of knowledge and this very broad level of experience that I could tap into quite easily, so it was very, very good preparation for me. And I apply all of that now as a CFO. Yeah.
Was it largely tech, the clients? Were they technology clients? What were they?
It was very diverse. There was absolutely clients that were in the tech space. There were also clients that were in hospitality and not-for-profits, in banking and finance. It was a very broad range, which was good in that, yes, we got the opportunity to touch on tech companies and the types of challenges that they were facing. But it also probably gave me a lot more empathy for the types of customers that we serve today. With so many of Deputy's customer base being in retail and hospitality, I have more insight and more understanding and empathy, for how the challenges that they're running into and the businesses that they're building. In saying that, another element, I guess, of that role that was formative for me was being in a client-facing role early on. Without me knowing, it really helped develop my leadership, if you like, more than just technical proficiency. But it really honed my ability to present and influence and, most importantly, storytelling. That's probably one of the elements of being a CFO, where you have to be able to tell a compelling story through the numbers. You have to be able to drive clarity. And so early on in my career, I was developing these skills that are essential for connecting financial insights to strategic decision making. But I didn't really know at the time that that's how I'd leverage it later. So it was very valuable.
You could have left the accounting world sooner and stepped into industry. What kept you there?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think I had enough wiggle room that I could really tease out the parts of the job that I loved. And I found a passion for this early on. I wasn't a compliance engine. I very much loved partnering with the business owners and how do we scale this? How do we grow this? And that challenge of it always jumped out at me. And so I was often working in a space where I had an outsourced CFO service, or I was advising on different deals. So I really got to play to my strengths and to the part of the role that I loved. And I guess that was it. I guess it was because I got to make it my own and I got to really amplify the parts that were appealing and interesting. And it was only later on that I said, okay, if this is really the part of the job that I want to do, how do I go and dedicate my time to one company and really get to drive this forward rather than stretching myself across so many, and you can never get quite as deep as you'd like to. But the clues were there for me early on that it was more a commercial role I was suited to.
I have a sense, and you already touched on storytelling, but I have a sense that you had strong communications skills early on, and there was a time where you were tapped on the shoulder either by a client or one of the more senior people on the team who said, we need you tomorrow. Can you step into this meeting with us? I mean, that's how it often happens, Emma. Yeah. But when you think back, I mean, there was obvious from an early stage of development that perhaps you could also tell the story. Can you give us an example, or does something come to mind?
Yeah, something does come to mind. I think you're right. I think there was some level of natural ability. I was a people person and I could certainly engage and I could build trust and rapport quickly. But I do remember very early on, probably in my first year or two, of being in the workforce, where I was thrown in the deep end again and again and just expected to make it work. And you just sort of learn what your limits are and what your capacity is. But there was one defining moment that left quite an impression on me. I was probably 20 or 21 and I was working with the not-for-profit, and I had a role of supporting the treasury function, in the capacity that I was helping them. And I'll never forget being in this meeting where I'm sitting at the table with these industry giants and these incredible leaders, and just watching the way they mastered their craft, just watching the way they influenced the room and that they conveyed their message, and they went in knowing what do I have to speak about, what's the outcome that I need, how do I know who it's going to hit and where. That just left such an impression on me at such an early age. I think I had an example of what good looked like in terms of the storytelling and the influence and the executive presence. I think that door was opened up to me almost by accident, but I was incredibly fortunate. And then realizing that was such a unique position that I found myself in, I worked incredibly hard and I built wonderful relationships with those people. And then they took me on almost as mentors. So I think I had that insight and that example to follow and that blueprint really early on. So I guess that was a pretty formative time in honing that.
I'm looking at your resume over here. You've got 10 years in accounting. It's obvious you were a senior accountant in this company. I'm what's going through my mind? Well, didn't you want to become a partner? I mean, was that what you wanted at a certain time? Did you ever feel you were at risk of not, advancing into a senior finance role in industry? Because sometimes accounting firms are a little vague.
I'll share with you, I guess, when I came to that fork in the road. I certainly felt that I was acknowledged in terms of seniority, in terms of the projects that I was put on, in terms of the clients that I was serving. And I came to that crossroads a couple of times where it was, okay, we're looking down the road at partnership now. This is the next step. And instead of it being a feeling for me of, well, this is incredible and this is what I've worked for and, this is the dream that so many of my colleagues are aspiring to, I had more of a sense of, is that it? Like, I'm going to get to this point and I know what that looks like. And is it going to be rinse and repeat? Am I just going to get better and better at this? And I didn't feel like I'd reached my potential, if you like. I feel like there was, I guess, an itch to scratch, and that wasn't compelling enough. And I did have that point of, my goodness, I'd worked so hard and I'd sacrificed a lot and all the things that everybody does to accelerate quickly. And I did accelerate quickly. And I did have this sense of, well, I think I want to go into a commercial role. I think I want to step outside, but I've got to step away now from this certain point where I am this senior and I do have this acknowledgement, and it moves so quickly. If I step out of this seat, am I going to go backwards? Am I going to be able to come back to this foothold if it doesn't work out or if I've gotten it wrong? And in the end, I've been faced with the decisions like that several times over. And in the end, I always land on, you have to back yourself. You have to take a step. You have to go and figure it out. And what's the worst thing? You're going to learn that that's not what I wanted, and then maybe have to spend a couple of years and, but how long is your career? Like, I have time. This all happened at such an early point in my career that if the biggest risk was I need time to make up ground, I have that, and so it was more important for me to go and test myself and challenge myself and feel like I was stretching and growing and engaged and looking for the parts of my job that I was really passionate about and engaged with. I often say to people, people talk about they want to find their passion and work on their passion. It's like, all you have to look for is what gives you energy. You just what draws you in. What are you losing yourself in for hours and you don't know? That for me is enough. That's satisfying.
How long during your career was it that you began leading others? You began overseeing others. You began there were teams of people answering to you. When was that? When did that happen? How soon into your career?
It was fairly early on. And my ramp time was also interesting because I was studying full time while I started working as well. So I was client facing and doing all of this before I'd even fully graduated yet, right? Like I parallel pathed a lot, because where I also accelerated, things in the early days. So when I started overseeing and managing people, it would have been within the first 5 years or so, I would think. I don't recall definitively. It starts small, you take on one or two and then keep moving.
Did your age hold you back initially, do you think?
I think age is something that has come up a few times for me. And what I've found is there's always the mental gymnastics of it. There's always the initial impression of, well, how old is she? And can she really have that much experience? And can she really do the job? And the way that I've navigated it is honestly not to overthink it, is that, the opportunity is there if I'm ready to take it. And if I've done the work, then you can underestimate me or you can doubt me, but the work will speak for itself. And usually that silences any doubt or naysayers pretty quickly. So I think I've come across that perception a few times, especially when I was advising certain businesses. If I walked into a room and there was someone that was, clearly had been in business for 20, 30 years and sort of looking at me sideways, like, are we sure we're up for this? But, it was never a meaningful problem. I understood the importance of getting it right. So I never would have put things at risk that would have ended badly for someone else or otherwise. I always made sure that I was prepared, but I had to back myself and have a level of conviction because perception matters. I changed the perception, by just doing the work and delivering.
When you do step into industry in these senior roles, and again, you're a CFO shortly after you step away from the accounting world, board members? Is that a new experience? And usually I save this to the end, but I'm just curious if there was one last box you had to check. And somehow I think in your accounting days, you no doubt might have presented to boards now and again, but I don't know. But can you tell us, was there a piece of the role that you hadn't yet experienced?
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? It's probably also because what doesn't jump off the page was that the role that I crafted for myself was not at all traditional accounting. It was very much a trusted advisor where I was brought in to whatever was happening in those businesses. And so I was exposed to a lot. And I certainly had quite a bit of experience dealing with boards, and that was usually through not-for-profits. If I was supporting a treasury function or something like that, I'd have to come in and speak to the numbers. I'd say I did move into a CFO role pretty quickly, but it was a size and scale of business that this is easy. It was, I'd been exposed to enough where it was a size and scale of business that, okay, it might be stretching me in a leadership capacity, but in terms of the technical side, in terms of the function, it was very, very comfortable for me. It wasn't as much of a stretch. I'd say the dynamics though were different. I'd say the dynamics were different. I'd say things like raising money were new to me. But day to day, it was a lot of the same stuff. It was similar. It rhymed. It was familiar enough. It was nuanced. Of course, it was a different level of responsibility and accountability. I was being vetted in different ways. The expectations of me were different. But there was enough that was familiar that I could then stretch again and make it my own. Without being too far in the deep end.
You've said, and we'll move on shortly here, but I think it's revealing about you. I think you indicated twice that you really helped create the role that you had. You crafted it. You helped craft it as if it wasn't the typical role, or if you hadn't reached out and asked for different types of opportunities and demonstrated this is the role you want me to play. See what I just did? I can do it again for you. I don't know, but it seems like that was what you were suggesting happened or transpired.
That's exactly what happened. And it was, I think when you think about accounting and in that world, there's a lot of people that are wondering, like, how is this industry going to transform? What's going to be automated? What's going to be taken away? How much of this will continue to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Yeah. So I probably played to an interest where it was, where can we add more value and where can we better serve our clients and how can we become that trusted partner? And I saw a gap. I saw a gap where, I knew my clients needed this level of support and were willing to pay for it. And it would be, very profitable and attractive to the firms that I was working in. So, I did tease it out.
Well, we might have some more career-related questions for you a little later. Right now, we want to find out about Deputy. Tell us about this company. What is it about today? What are its offerings today?
Yeah. So look, Deputy is a workforce management platform for hourly workers. And our technology is designed to streamline employee scheduling and time tracking, and communication for businesses. And on balance, Deputy really helps to improve operational efficiency and reduce labor cost, for the customers that we serve. So if I was to give you maybe a little bit more color on what that means, we leverage demand forecasting to help businesses schedule the right number of employees at the right time. We match labor to operational needs in real time, and all of this reduces unnecessary staff costs. If I was to give you maybe a little bit of context around the platform and what it does today, just a few key call outs is, one of our features is smart scheduling, and this is where we can automate shift creation based on sales data and budgets and staffing needs. Our compliance tools ensure that our businesses, our customers, are adhering to everything compliance related: break policies, overtime regulations, wage rules. And Deputy, growing up in Australia, is one of the most complex regulatory environments in terms of wage rules. We have what are called awards, which are very long documents that tell you, how to pay staff at different points in the day and what are the different overtime. It's incredibly complex that can't really be done manually, and so that is a very strong a very strong moat, if you like, for Deputy, in that we've grown up in one of the most complex environments that now, as we're scaling globally, it's almost simple when we look at what others are doing, because it's become unnecessarily complex in Australia.
You say you're expanding globally. Where is it populating today? Where are your customers?
Yeah. So as I said, we grew up in Australia. That still a very large base in Australia. Our second biggest footprint is in the US. And we're expanding in the US quite rapidly. And then the third key market is the UK, just in terms of operations and where we're focusing. But we actually have customers all around the world in just about every country now.
And could you just give us a brief history of its capital structure? Is this company privately owned?
Yes. Yeah, Deputy's still privately owned. We're 16 years old now, and we still have our founders involved with us. We've been very disciplined historically and still up till now in terms of how we manage our finances, and we haven't needed to raise capital often or maybe as aggressively as some of our industry peers. Just recently, up until end of last year, Deputy went nearly 5-6 years without raising any capital and was profitable. So again, a little bit of the Australian tech culture, if you like, in terms of how we bootstrapped it for a while, but still a private company. A few investors that we've taken on over the years, and has been profitable the last couple of years.
And you were in the CFO seat for that capital raise?
I was, yes. Yeah. I joined Deputy in beginning of 2022, and we brought on 2 strategic advisors in early 23.
And this company, you said 16 years. Was it always a cloud-based offering?
Yeah. Always cloud-based. And, one of the things that's so great about Deputy is actually our mobile app. So, always in the cloud. But also our mobile app is incredibly valuable. So we're really supporting two parties here. We have the employer, who's obviously, managing everything, but then we have their employees and the actual end user, and they will typically live in the mobile app. And I think they're sort of in there up to 7 times a day the last time I checked, but it's incredibly valuable for them too, because it's, when you think about so many businesses, especially in the US, that are still doing this on pen and paper and doing the ring around and trying to organize schedules and, swap shifts and all of that. The end employee, the end user, doesn't actually have much visibility or control over their schedule, over their earning capacity, over who am I working with, and balancing, their personal life. So they are just raving fans of Deputy, because they log into the app and they know, what am I doing? When am I doing it? Who am I working with? Do I want to work with that person? And, they can budget more accurately. And it drives a lot more independence and control, and empowerment for them too.
So when you arrive, curious as to the finance function, and if you reorganized it in some way, added some key role that might not have been there. Maybe you just reorged the FP&A team. Don't know. What would you share with us?
Yeah, it wasn't a complete overhaul. I was very fortunate to have a level of structure and stability and wonderful talent that had been set up by the CFO before me. So I was fortunate in terms of there was some really strong pillars in place when I joined. There was absolutely a bit of shuffling. One of the things that I did do, and I can share a little bit more with you on this later, but one of the things that I did do was when I first joined, there was this question around, would we be raising again soon? And it was quite clear early on that this was not the time to be doing it. It was on the back of, 2021 and huge valuations and big raises. And in early 22, things were changing pretty rapidly. So one pivot that we did make was really not the time to raise capital. We need to optimize for runway and did what a lot of others have done. But in setting that redirection, the finance team was pivotal in that, in really surfacing the right data and insights and helping us run a very analytical process around, what can we optimize and what are the leaky taps to turn off, which just really safeguarded our future. It was a very strong and favorable event for us to do that. And so in terms of, how have we steered them and what have we redirected? Less around structure, more around, I guess, how we were serving the business, and the insights that we were surfacing and how we were making decisions. And has been more transformative and it helped us lead some very key, initiatives when they were needed.
How you make decisions have in some way changed, been enhanced. Why is that? More visibility available to you? The criteria you tweaked somehow? I don't know, but I'm just curious as to whether it had anything to do with finance lines of sight and what numbers are able to be seen by more people.
Yeah. I think it was a number of things. I think it was, it really was a number of things. It was stitching together a couple of key elements where, one, we had to centralize, the data in terms of that was going to be needed, to make decisions. So when I joined, there was a lot of work that needed to be done in terms of hygiene, in terms of what are the definitions, in terms of what are these metric means, in terms of centralizing it and having one source of truth. So bringing that together was a key piece of the puzzle, just so that we could start aligning cross-functional teams around the same source of information and what does it mean? And the ability to say, well, okay, if this is the strategy that we're setting and this is the operating plans that we're setting, just follow up the funnel. What are the leading indicators and what matters and how are we going to be tracking success? And this then falls into, OKRs and company goals and just really from a very high level down to a operational level, just stitching together that thread so that everybody knows what they're doing and everybody knows what they're accountable for and everybody's watching the same numbers and the same data. That sounds simple and straightforward, but when you have everything in different places and you also just have that education piece that's needed to bring everybody on the journey and get everybody to align and agree. Early on, there's a lot of influencing and negotiating and like, how do we, because we have to be able to draw a line under it. So I think just starting with governance of data was key and then introducing frameworks that made sense. And then there's been a lot of communication and clarity and cross-functional collaboration that we've just had to drive as we start to develop these rhythms. And then, teams beyond my own help drive that process where then it's the operational rigor and cadence of what are we coming together to talk about and making sure that we're all still aimed around the right things and we're all moving in the same direction. And, it's not an overnight fix. It's always two steps forward, one step back because it's a big change management process to go through, but we are in a dramatically better place from that perspective, than we were a couple of years ago. There's always nuance and refinement because we're always moving and changing and growing, so we introduce new things all the time that we have to come up with a process for. But the perseverance to just keep moving it forward is probably what matters the most, not giving up.
Wondering over the last 2.5 years, if there was a number or metric that you realized the organization needed to respond differently to, and I'm trying to keep it as broad as possible, just a number that was under the radar, or just a new measurement, or maybe an old measurement that wasn't getting all the love it deserved. Is there some number that you think the organization has begun to look at a little harder or differently?
I think there's a few things. There's a few things in terms of, what is the company looking at? What we found is, because we can also overwhelm, with too much information and too much data and too many numbers. But what we were able to do was just like boil to the top if everything ladders up to just a couple, So in terms of our strategy, what are we building and what does this look like? And long term, what is success? And you can usually, if you dig deep enough and, ask why 3 times, you can usually get to a couple of key metrics that will surface that say, look, if we look at nothing but this, everything should really start to ladder up to it. And so we were able to do that. We had 2 key metrics for us, that was really around growth of the company and scaling, our customer base as needed. And we were able to surface a couple where we could say to our broader teams, if you just look at this, you know what I mean? You'll have a sense of how we're pacing and that we're on track. And you'll also be able to connect the dots with what you're looking at and how it ladders up to this. I think one thing that you said that is interesting was there something that maybe it's an old one that people have heard too much about and they, we need to sort of bring it back to life and really drive the importance of it. I think just about every company meeting we had in my first 6 months, all I would talk about was NDR. And it was just the need to educate our staff on how important this is, because this is the base of our business. These are our existing customers, and this is telling me how healthy they are, how likely they are to expand. The macro environment was changing, and it was all surfacing in that metric, It's one of many that were really important, but in terms of just that burning focus, that was really important for us because the environment we were operating in was shifting. And so it hadn't needed to be a thing, in prior days because things were happening at a macro level where that just took care of itself. But as things were changing, we drove a lot of, I guess, clarity and urgency around that. And then the final element that I'd share with you is, and maybe outside those traditional metrics, is more in terms of, at Deputy, there's a significant focus on workforce trends. We're serving the world of hourly work and understanding trends for those hourly workers because they form, the core of our customer base and their environments are shifting too. We'd absolutely zero in on them. So, things like hiring rates and turnover and scheduling trends, all of this provided critical insight just into the broader dynamics of the shift work economy, which helps us stay ahead of customer needs and find new opportunities, for growth and our commitment to serving them.
Well, we want to be certain to touch on AI with you. We're wondering if the company, we imagine AI, it's a technology company, so it's been part of its world for some time now, perhaps. But at the same time, is Deputy leveraging AI to enhance its competitive advantage today? What would you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, our AI strategy is embedded across the platform. A couple of key areas of focus for us is that yes, we are already leveraging this in our smarter scheduling. So we leverage machine learning to optimize scheduling and predict shift patterns and minimize the manual effort there. This not only saves time, but it also ensures schedules align with business needs and employee preferences. And we're also now using this in hiring. So to leverage smarter hiring, we use AI to create job descriptions, and generally just looking for ways to automate, as much of the manual time consuming processes that currently exist. They may not even realize it's a problem yet. So we are already leveraging it. I would say that we're very committed though to doing more. We've actually just completed an AI hackathon this week, where we're going to be aligning on what ideas do we want to fold into our roadmap going into next year. But yeah, like everybody, we know that it can't be ignored and we need to be doing more with it.
What about your finance team? Is it contributing in any way to forecasting or some other area within finance?
More so just exploring at the moment. In terms of internal use, I'd say that we're in discovery phase. We've been across the business. There's pockets of, we're testing and learning with what works, but we're also making sure we do this with a level of rigor and process, because as we roll this out across teams, we also need to be making sure that we're not sharing anything that's sensitive or confidential and that we're using it in the right way. So I would say, yes, we're starting to use it, but we're not using it to the extent that we know we could, because we're wanting to be very mindful of how we start to adopt this into our business process.
Well, Emma, we're up to our finance strategic moment question. And again, this is where we just ask for one moment of strategic insight during your career. And we know you've probably had a few of these already today, but what comes to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
A few come to mind. I'll share one with you because I started to touch on the other earlier. So I'll share one with you that I haven't shared yet. But we talked about raising capital. So when I joined Deputy early 2022, knew that it was going to be on the cards at some point. And, we navigated a pretty interesting year where, we had to optimize for runway. We had to move the business to profitability. We had to really strengthen our foundations so that we could usher in our new CEO, at the beginning of 2023. 2023. I'm already losing the dates. 24 is messing me up, but we're already going into a new year. And then really on the back of that, it was, okay, we now have our new leader in seat. We have refined and strengthened our strategy. And once again, it was on the table to go and raise capital. And, in exploring this was a pretty defining strategic moment because, it's, it's fairly straightforward to go and raise with VCs or otherwise. But we started talking with a prospective customer, named Express Pros, which is one of the largest staffing agencies in the US. And in the 6 months that we were getting to know each other and they were just exploring Deputy as a product and coming on board, they gave us such a compliment in that, you know, coming from our space and knowing our space, they saw the value of Deputy as a product and they wanted to invest. They wanted to come on board as a customer, but they also wanted to make a strategic investment because they knew that it would be all up and to the right from there. And they saw the opportunity in us partnering together, and helping really just, you know, how do we then distribute Deputy to their customers and so on as well. And so we spent a good 6 months exploring this opportunity, and bringing them on as customers, all of that. And very, very pleased to share that, they made a strategic investment in Deputy, for 25 mil USD. And the value of that partnership is really going to be through distribution longer term, right? And the value that creates. And then following, that deal being struck, we then brought on Xero, which is a large accounting, platform in Australia. And they also, followed in the following months, to make another investment of 25 mil US. And again, there's a big distribution unlock for Deputy through that. So I'd say in sharing that with you, one of the strategic, you know, defining moments for me at Deputy was, I guess, exploring that pathway in outside traditional fundraising, really starting to work with strategic partners, and the value that they could help co-create and identify was just really wonderful. It was a really great experience, and we're very, very fortunate and very pleased to have them as partners. They're a very strong fit for us. And it's all going brilliantly. They've been exceptional up until this time, and we're really excited about the future that we're going to be creating together. But those deals also helped launch Deputy, to reach unicorn status as well. So we had this quick succession of moving to profitability, bringing on the CEO, you know, big customer that was coming on board, but identifying that there was an opportunity there to do more. And then with their investment reaching unicorn status, now we're going into next year, and it's just extreme focus on execution. You know, there's so many opportunities in front of us now. We're just heads down and need to drive it forward. But that's been a particular highlight over the last couple of years for me.
Are you tired of manual, fragmented, and time-consuming expense management processes? Then the U.S. Bank Commercial Rewards Card might be right for your business. More than just a card, it's an all-in-one card, expense, and travel management solution that replaces outdated expense management methods with a single intuitive platform. Specifically designed to scale with your growing business, it provides the control and real-time insights into spend that you need. It integrates with your existing tools, lets you set custom spend policies, captures all expenses automatically, and liability is kept at the corporate level. Employees can even book travel right in the platform. You also get to choose your rewards, either points or rebates, all while saving money with no annual fee. So why wait? Manage your cash flow better and streamline your business operations today with the U.S. Bank Commercial Rewards Card. Visit usbank.com/CFO to learn more. We want to move to what we refer to as our mentoring round. As you stepped into the CFO role for the first time, and you were no longer the advisor, we hear all the time that, you know, it's a little different when you're the leader. You're the one responsible for the people below you and the shareholders and everything. Go back to 2022. What is the piece of advice you'd give yourself? What is it that you'd say, hey, all of what you just shared, all of what just transpired at the start of that, you know, what would have been useful to know?
I think that I knew it was never just going to be about the numbers. Like we've talked about storytelling. I think amplifying that though, I think the absolute critical need for a CFO to be able to drive clarity and really align people, I would have absolutely amplified that point. And I think I think the other bit that comes to mind when you ask the question is just to be prepared to lead through so much uncertainty. Because things are just changing and shifting so often, and you're never going to be able to, you're never going to have complete certainty. You know what I mean? You're going to have to lead, with a level of flexibility and appetite for risk and ambiguity. And, I think it's essential to be able to embrace all of that. But that's the bit that, like, just in reacting to it, honestly, that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is that everything that we've learned over the last few years and post-COVID and everything that's going on in the world, it's just that. It's just that things are unpredictable, and being able to lead through that and being able to try to anticipate that is absolutely where I would advise others to spend their time, really making sure you understand the environment that you're operating in, because you're not excluded from it. You know, a lot of people will look at their company and they'll see their opportunity, and it's very much through rose-colored glasses, but understanding that, you know, you're operating in a much bigger landscape and you're not exempt from what's going on. So, being able to anticipate through uncertainty, is where I'd focus.
Nice. Thank you, Emma. We always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side. Is there something, perhaps your colleagues might not even know about you, an interest you have, a pursuit of yours earlier in your career do not know? And anything come to mind? Something?
Yeah, I'm fairly open. I don't know how much that I don't know that there's too much that would surprise them. But one point probably is, you mentioned, you know, early on and what were interests. I don't think I ever set out thinking I'd have a career in finance. I was probably the opposite of what you'd anticipate, you know, early on and leaving school. I was very much into the arts, and, I thought I wanted to be a chef and didn't know how terribly wrong that was. And it was really after leaving school and getting a little bit of just experience, that I realized what I didn't want to do. And this just started to appeal to, I guess, a natural side to me that was quite analytical. And, you know, it was the right fit. But I would say that, yeah, probably something that people don't know is that I didn't always plan to work in finance. And I wouldn't have guessed this if you'd asked me, you know, when I was.
When you said the arts, or were you meaning liberal arts, or literally, were you an artist of some kind? Do you paint, or do you?
No, yeah. Yeah, I was more into artistic, I guess. I was very strong with, you know, in terms of subjects and stuff where I was very strong on English, and yes, absolutely, I was into art, and, I used to love to sketch, and I was into music, and, you know, and I thought I wanted to be a chef. So when you think about that overall profile, it wasn't, I've lost all of it now. I don't think I have an artistic shred left in me anymore, but, yeah, it's all like that.
What about, would you have a book selection for us? And it doesn't have to be a business book. It could be an art book. Look at that. No, anything come to mind, a book that you'd recommend? It might be something you escape with.
Yeah. Not so much. Not so much anymore in terms of, like, I actually used to be, I used to love reading, and I used to read all the time, and I need to get back to it. I miss it dearly. I have found that in recent times, you know, a lot of my spare time now is with my little girl, who's only just hit 9 months old. So that's all consuming, and the days of reading are currently on pause. But one that comes to mind when I'm asked was, Good to Great was one that left an impression on me. Yeah, I'd say that's a classic, and I'd certainly recommend that. I always get value out of that, but it's been a little while for me personally.
So again, for the last 2.5 years, you started a family in the last 2.5 years as well. Yeah.
Yeah, not even 2.5 years. Yeah, Madison was born in March of this year. So, it's been a whirlwind of all the things, you know. It's been a busy time.
Well, thank you for that. Appreciate that. We're up to our final question, where we ask you to look forward finally. And we're interested in your priorities as a CFO for the coming 12 months. What would those be?
Yeah. My focus is very much on executing now. It's, as I shared with you, we've gone through as a company, and as a team, so much change over the last couple of years. And we have really strengthened our position, and now we're just in execution mode. So my focus is just expanding Deputy globally and getting us into as many hands as absolutely possible. You know, we're serving a very underserved market, if you like. There's 2.7 billion shift workers in the world, and very little investment goes to technologies that are actually looking to support them. And so as wonderful and as fantastic as the last couple of years have been, this next year, we're just heads down on, we know what we need to do. We know the products to build. We know the solutions to bring to our customers. And, we're just very, very excited about the impact that we get to have on the world of work. And we take that very seriously. So it's, heads down.
Excellent. Emma Seymour, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Jack here. Hope you've been enjoying our recent episodes of CFO Thought Leader. Please know that I don't take for granted this opportunity to serve you. Your time is valuable, and of course, so is the time of our CFO guests. I'll admit to you on certain weeks, I will pinch myself and say, hey, I get to do this for a living. I speak to all these impressive leaders. Undoubtedly, there are more aggressive interviewers out there, some who leave no stone unturned. But our swim lane is for finance leaders only. And those finance leaders have a unique style of leadership, one that is rooted in the burden of trust. In light of this, finance leaders must take great care not to forfeit this trust as they step into the role of being a more expressive leader. And that is what CFO Thought Leader is really about. That's why I try to remind myself week in, week out, how fortunate I am. Still, I need your help. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Email me your comments at jack@cfothoughtleader.com. And please visit cfothoughtleader.com. You'll find a listener survey right on the nav bar. As always, thank you for listening.